Hi everyone, I'm David. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. By the look of the schedule, I'm the only government person on the panels, but I see some of my colleagues later on are going to talk to you as well. So I just wanted to say thank you to the previous speaker, David. I thought that was a fantastic presentation and a really good call to action. And also good that you saw a lot in New Zealand about niche and about how New Zealand manufacturers can be strong on the world stage. And that's actually a little bit of what I'm going to talk about too. It's a bit of a pep talk for all of us about what we're doing and what we're doing well. And it's also a bit of a call to action and a bit of a note of warning as well. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about this. And I'm using this new thing that we've launched this week as part of Tech Week. The New Zealand tech industry and some government agencies got together and we worked on this new story for New Zealand around upstarters and the concept, and actually Rod mentioned this earlier, Sir Angus Tate is a quintessential upstarter, as we like to call him, someone who challenges authority and thinks differently about innovation and their place in the world, and really that's building on this whole concept, as we talked about, this kind of number 8 wire concept that we hold dear in New Zealand, this idea that we can create anything from a small piece of wire has been a great paradigm for innovation in New Zealand over the years, and it needs a refresh. It needs a little bit of an update. So upstarters is really part of what we're talking about when we talk about there. And we're in an incredibly lucky country because we've got people like Jack Ma saying comments like this about us. We've got comments where Jack will say, the Earth is fortunate to have a country like New Zealand. We should embrace this, not only buy from New Zealand, which is good because he wants to buy from us, fantastic, but also we should learn from them. And this is a really interesting kind of unfair advantage that we have as New Zealand, this image that we've got around the world of being good for the world. And it's the theme actually of Tech Week this week, and comes out again and again when we think about our manufacturing. So what is it about New Zealand, what is it about us that causes Jack Ma, head of Alibaba, one of the biggest success stories in the technology industry around the world, to say that sort of thing about us? Well, first of all, we have a rich history of and tradition of innovation. So you guys don't need to read every piece on there, but it gives me a kind of a warm feeling when I see these sorts of slides. Just think back about our 150 to 200 year history and how innovative we are per capita as a nation. 5 million people today, and we have generated an enormous variety and complexity of innovation through our whole history. The first innovation in New Zealand was when the Māori settlers came here and innovated around crop culture. They came up with a whole way of growing kumara in the soil because they couldn't grow it anywhere else. Some of our innovations have included, for example, this year is the 125th anniversary of universal suffrage, of giving women the vote. So we basically invented democracy, is what I'm saying. So quite an amazing history and a lot of innovation, and today it just is carrying on. And to the point that was made earlier, this is an exponential thing we're seeing. So New Zealand has a right to be proud of what we've done and what we're doing, and we've got to move faster to keep up. I'm just going to pause because David's taking a photo, and I thought if I can make him take a photo of my slides, I'll be very happy, because I thought he had some fantastic slides, so thank you. Part of the story that came out as part of this upstarters idea, this concept that we wanted to refresh New Zealand's image about ourselves, was this idea that innovation comes from the edge, not the centre. And I love this. It was actually reflected back to us when we did a whole lot of market analysis globally. We went out to lots of people around the world and said, what do you think about New Zealand? What do you think about technology and innovation? And actually, what are your perceptions? And quite a lot of positive comments came back, which is great. This innovation from the edge concept is a big one. You down there in New Zealand, there's something special in the water. You guys are doing things, you're thinking differently about things. You do things in ways that we can't conceptualize. You've got this kind of multidisciplinary approach to problem solving. International organisations that hire Kiwis typically say, well, we thought we were going to hire a person to fit into one role, and in fact they're doing about 5 different things. And that's just because of the nature of the country. It goes back again, number 8 wire. We had to make things out of stuff that didn't exist. There was a long way to go anywhere to get to the shops to fix something. Sir Angus Tate, who started here, had to invent new ways of creating radio systems and invent new manufacturing techniques because he couldn't get the access around the world. So this innovation from the edge is one key concept that comes through, and there's some nice sort of factors that kind of give evidence to that. This fact that we come up with ingenious solutions, like different ways of thinking about the same problem, very creative is one thing that we are. So as we go out to the world and tell our stories, these resonate. These messages resonate with the markets and the organisations that we deal with. And the third one I want to pick on is the idea that nowadays, in particular, we are born global. The companies that we see at New Zealand Trade and Enterprise today are almost automatically thinking about the global market, not the New Zealand market, for many reasons. Clearly, we're only a very small market here in New Zealand anyway, but actually, they're now seeing that our traditional barriers of distance from market is disappeared thanks to new global paradigms, new different ways of supply chain, the internet. A whole lot of things has meant that actually the things that used to hold us back as a nation are no longer true. So when you're going to start a business, why think about starting a 5 million kind of person market? Why not start with a global market? And that's a really interesting kind of way of thinking about the world that we're seeing more and more and more as you see small companies, in Taranaki and Dunedin and Invercargill and places like this, starting up businesses and immediately being global businesses. It's quite interesting for a government organisation like ourselves, who are typically helping people understand how to put things on ships, to suddenly think about how do they go global when they've only got like 4 people working for them, and how do we help them do that? So it's quite a good challenge for us as government to have to try and keep up with the kind of new paradigms as well. But it's Tech Week, so let's talk tech. Some really quick facts, nothing like a slide of facts. You all know this probably. It's technology in New Zealand is a $10 billion industry according to the TIN 100 data or 200 data. 7.3 billion in exports, so that's great. It's the third biggest sector in New Zealand and well on track to become the second biggest sector. Graham from NZ Tech guarantees me that's going to happen in the next couple of years, so we're all looking forward to that. You can see there that it employs quite a lot of people. Christchurch in particular, or Canterbury in particular, is the third largest region, but actually the second fastest growing region, I think, in terms of technology in New Zealand. So we're seeing actually this particular region being a real hotbed for innovation and technology. And in our data, we hold a lot of data about the New Zealand technology sector and companies we work with very closely. We deal with hundreds and hundreds of technology companies, probably representing about 90% of the export economy for technology. And we're seeing those companies growing at about 11%, which sounds small if you're from a technology company, but some of them are growing at 400% and some of them are growing at 3 or 4%. But 11% is a massive growth number for any large sector. So we're seeing some good things happening. We've also got some caution though, and it wouldn't be a good government thing without telling you all just to calm down and just make sure we're thinking. First of all, this is the global opportunity for technology. We see opportunity everywhere. But at the moment, when we look at our market and we talk to our international teams based abroad, we see some large markets for us. The US is a large technology market, Australia, Singapore, the UK. And those are the ones that our teams are telling us the economic settings are correct, particularly in the digital tech space. But also our infrastructure on the ground and our openness of those countries to deal with New Zealand is particularly well set up for technology sectors. And our challenge that we always see with all exporters, but particularly in the technology space, is actually, it's the flip side, it's the shadow side of being born global, is the fact that actually you have very little focus. And one of the challenges is always to find the right point of tension between having an aspiration for a global business and actually having the ability to execute. And we see quite a high correlation between those companies that choose a small number of countries and attack them and sell into them extremely diligently versus those who try and look at multiple markets at the same time and basically struggle with that lack of focus. So that's something to really to keep on thinking about. And now I'm going to finish with seven kind of core mistakes that we see exporters make. And again, this was the pep talk followed by the word of warning. These are some of the things that we see particularly repeated again and again and again. And this comes back from feedback from many of our interactions with companies. A very broad international strategy, as I mentioned earlier, that kind of lack of focus. Bottom right, lack of a customised go-to-market strategy. So one of the key problems is New Zealanders tend to think that everyone is like New Zealanders, and we go across overseas and we talk a bit like this, and we're very informal, and we don't wear a tie, and we call everyone mate. And some of that stuff is charming in the right circumstance, but actually a lot of the time we need to adapt our styles to suit the market and adapt our market entry strategy to think about that market also. The only other one I'm going to be able to pull out because I'm worried about time is this concept of effective governance and strategy. And it goes right back to what the previous speaker David was talking about too. In a world of almost infinite opportunity, both from a market point of view, but also from a product, from a technology point of view. In a world of infinite opportunity, one of the things you have to be very disciplined about is making good quality decisions and having high quality advice, so that you can then choose where to focus and choose, how best to go to market. And one of the things we see in technology companies in particular, it's kind of a stubborn thing, is this lack of good corporate governance, which sounds very boring, but governance from the perspective of looking at how to grow, not necessarily looking at how to control a company. And so that tension again is always there. So I guess I'm going to finish up by saying it's a fantastic time to be a New Zealand company. We've got this great reputation and a growing reputation overseas. This concept of us being an upstart nation is really catching hold with some people, and it's got some real evidence behind it. And at the same time, we need to be cautious to make sure that when we attack the global markets, we do it with thoughtfulness and with a clear plan and strategy. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Thanks, David. Thanks very much indeed, David, for setting that scene. Now, we've got a very well-structured panel here because we've got two excellent manufacturers and we've got two excellent suppliers of technology to them. So I'm going to ask Jim McCall first to talk about Asa Abloy New Zealand. Asa Abloy New Zealand was originally Interlock, a terrific New Zealand manufacturer which was attracted the attention of a large Swedish multinational. So I'm very keen to hear how Asa Abloy New Zealand works these days. So Jim, you got some slides?
No,
that's good. If anybody's got slides, I've got the remote. Are you happy to just talk from there rather than up at the podium?
Sure.
Okay, thanks very much. Over to you. Thanks.
Thanks very much. So, what's interesting to me is that I'm here talking to this group about Asa Abloy and some of the products that we produce, because normally when I talk to an audience about products that Asa Abloy produce, people's eyes start glazing over. There's not too much that's interesting about door and window furniture. But the interesting thing for me, being involved with Asa Abloy for the past 5 years, is how this business has actually flourished in the face of really stiff competition from China and a lot of the products that do come into New Zealand that compete with us from low-cost countries like China. So. What are we doing? Well, there's two key things, and David touched on this earlier. Key part of it for us is around our value proposition. So in New Zealand, we're largely an individualist society, and we like a point of difference. We like customization in our homes. We like things to be different, and within this, we've found a space to be highly competitive. And have a real point of difference from our competitors and those people who are located in China. So we have this strategy of mass customization with very short lead times. So for our products, typically what happens on any given day is we have around 1,200 order lines that come into our business. We do all the customization of those products that night. So we have a powder coating operation that colours these products in any one of about 600 different colours with batch sizes from anywhere between 1 and right up to 500. And we deliver it to our customers 2 days later. And this is something really that our competitors can't match. So this is a core part of our business strategy. Along with the customisation, the lead time is incredibly important to our customers. As you'll appreciate, in the construction industry, cash is king. So the fact that our customers receive our product on the day that they actually need it, and they don't need to hold this inventory for great lengths of time, is incredibly valuable to them. But in saying all that, there are some dark clouds on the horizon for us, because there's obviously this push for low-cost housing in New Zealand. There's talk about prefabrication and everything else. So this isn't enough by itself, and we realised that actually there's a price to customization, and actually customers are only prepared to pay so much of a premium. So we actually do need to do something about cost as well. And around 18 months ago, we embarked on the strategy around automation. And it's difficult for a business like ours, which will, as you appreciate, lots of short runs, highly complex processes. So we started with one collaborative robot in our lock bodies area. And around 18 months later, we've now got 6 robots operating in our factory. And we have plans for another 10 over the next 2 years. And to be honest, I'll probably do more than that, but it very much comes down to resourcing and how quickly we can do these things. But I think it's a game-changing technology for us, because all of a sudden what it allows us to do is actually level the playing field in terms of labour costs. And when we compare our products with imported products from China, once we start levelling the playing field on labour, we generally find that actually we buy materials for about the same cost as what our competitors do in China. And once we've evened that playing field, we can certainly outperform in terms of lead time, choice, and serviceability. So this is where we have a big push at the moment, and I'm really excited about some of this new technology that we're adopting, not only for our business but also I think for New Zealand manufacturing. I think we've got a very good window of opportunity here.
Thank you. Just one question, if I may, at this stage. So there's some export sales in your mix. So what's the split?
Yes, there are. So we're in New Zealand. We're about a $75 million business in New Zealand. Around 45% of what we produce is exported. Yep.
Fine. Thanks very much indeed. A big hand for Jim, please. Thank you very much. Our second manufacturer is Brent with Orcom Electronics. So over to you, Brent.
Okay. So just to quickly zone you in, we make a thing called a soft starter, which controls industrial motors that you'll see in your factory to run fans, pumps, conveyors, compressors. And we're exporting 99% of what we're doing, and that happened almost from day one 40 years ago. And so if I think about how we've been competitive over those 40 years, it's about innovation, but different types of innovation. So when we began, it was actually about this new technology that could control motors and prevent some problems, some mechanical and electrical problems. And we took that to the market, in the traditional means, meaning we would go and find a market, find somebody that could be a reseller of that product for us. But in selecting those people, what we realized is that what we made and what we got paid for was the soft starter, but actually what customers were wanting was successful motor starting solutions. So we always looked to find a partner that would mimic that. And as pioneers of this technology, the day that our Motorola's, Siemens, Schneider, Rockwell appeared, that's pretty heavyweight competition. But on the other hand, it served to validate the technology and raise its interest. But at that point, what we faced was that, look, we're going to be monstered by volumes, by reach. So what can we do about that? So the next innovation that we had was really that the traditional model of finding somebody to represent Orcom wasn't going to foot it. So we understood that there were other global-sized companies that with which Soft Start could fit in with their portfolio. They had other products which could form a family. And specifically, there's another form of technology, variable speed drives, that can control the speed of motors, where we control their acceleration and deceleration. So our next means to be competitive was to form branding relationships with global companies. And now our innovation was, how do we integrate what we're doing? We've got a product which is in demand. How do we focus on these 8 suppliers now, 8 branding relationships that are over 80% of our business? We have to be operationally excellent to deliver these guys a product which they can take to market. So that's been driving our growth for some time. And it's those tight relationships, and we're innovating and designing our product not only for end customers, but also for our partners. And that involves thinking, just as we've heard about, we do late customization, because part of what we're offering is that actually we're not designing 8 product ranges, we're designing one. So all the R&D investment, all the approvals, all that kind of investment is spread across 8 companies. So we're very mindful of delivering value to each of those segments. However, as that starts to reach its limit, because there are only so many of those partners we can have, we're thinking about, instead of exporting globally, we're now shifting into a phase of operating globally, because there's more value that we can add to this product. So in what all the R&D and manufacture will stay in New Zealand as the core product, but often by the time our product goes into market, it's in a motor control cubicle with other components. And that can't be manufactured from here because it's very customized for that individual customer. So we have operations, a factory in the US and in Germany that are able to do the panelization. So we're adding more value. And so you see that we started off with technological innovation, then marketing innovation, we're using automation in our factory, but we're also now heading back to delivering what it is that actually customers want. And what we would hope out of all of that cycle is that as we are now operating globally and we're close to people who are using our product, then actually there's the opportunity for very insightful future technological R&D and innovation in that space. And here, the Industry 4.0, we're using it in our factory. People that are using our equipment in their factories want to know about it. So we're looking both inside our factory and by being close to the people who are using our equipment, we hope to discover the next value add. And we'd love to be selling a service, as we heard earlier from David.
Fine. Thank you very much. A big hand for Ben. Thank you. Now, our 2 technology suppliers are both Christchurch companies. So I'll turn first to Henry. Corvecto is a company in virtual reality and augmented reality. So Henry, over to you.
Well, I guess one of the things that differentiates us here is that nothing we do is real in many senses, at least not physical. We, as a bit of background, former video game developers for about 5-6 years, decided to use our powers for good and working out how we might be able to apply said video game technology in otherwise enterprise-orientated solutions. Using virtual reality for a start. Can I get a quick hands up? Who's used or familiar with virtual reality? Brilliant numbers. You see that, Rupert? It's good over here. Yeah. Augmented reality? Not bad at all. Fantastic. So obviously these particular mediums have got a very powerful way of communicating new forms of information, and particularly for individuals in the likes of the manufacturing scene, there's a whole variety of different ways that you can apply these. On our side, we'll use this for health, training, safety, for user testing and design, to put individuals into a 3D world and then evaluate how they understand it, how they interact with the world, where they go, what they look at, as well as the opportunity to perform trial and error. You know, if you want to learn how to use an advanced piece of machinery like what we do for Fulton Hogan, for instance, you've got the ability to push all the buttons and the levers and move the ladders and move everything, but experience the consequence of your action if you make a screw up, let's say. You can experience what comes from it without actually going through the unfortunate side effect of death or grievous bodily harm. But one of the parts that I think is probably most relevant to you guys is the likes of what we've done for Weimer Solutions. So the guys at Andrew Barclay and Co., they came to us a while ago and they said, look, we want to use virtual reality. We're currently taking our products, you know, the likes of our pictures and miniaturized 3D models of the beautiful machinery that they create, and we're taking it overseas and we're showing that off at conferences. We feel like virtual reality could be a way to improve on that. And so what we effectively did to start with was we took their CAD models and we imported them into a virtual reality world and set it up so that they could effectively carry this piece of kit onto, you know, carry-on luggage on an aeroplane, set it up in, say, Berlin at Fruit Logistica, and all of a sudden they can put their potential clients and customers into a scale replica of their entire factory where they can move around and examine it. That's what we've also got set up downstairs if anyone would like a look. The number of opportunities in the space are very powerful, as I said before, but the ability to take what you're physically creating without having to carry it around, to lug it around for the purpose of demonstrating and showing is probably one of the key value adds in the near future.
Fine, thank you very much indeed. And thank you. If I may now turn to Charlotte and Jade, and over to you.
Sure, thank you. Well, I am sort of in transition. I've got a foot in each camp, so one in the manufacturing camp and one in the technology camp, or that soft space, if you like. Having been at Jade for just sort of 4 months so far, I'm still getting my head around some of that. And in fact, one of the interesting things is applying some of the high-tech manufacturing disciplines to, and some of the things that really work very well there into a software or service space. Really interesting crossovers. I kind of love that sort of hybridization. But the one thing that probably ties the two of them together is the idea that, certainly in my experience, innovation comes out of something which is deeply cultural and really, really strongly founded in customer insights. And in order to be really focused on those customer insights, all your people have to understand culturally what that feels like and have to be on board with that. So it goes to overall what your cultural strategy is, and then how you apply that into actually your commercialization of product. And what we've found is that taking that approach in a manufacturing sense and also in a software sense means that it doesn't matter where we are, it doesn't matter which market we're playing in. If we understand our customer really, really tightly, really, really well, understand those unmet needs or those unknown needs better than anyone else, then we're competitive and we win every time. So that's kind of a fundamental for us. So what I saw in my previous manufacturing background was in the manufacturing of, or the design and manufacture of power wheelchair control. And the interesting thing there, I suppose, is that in the past, you'd think that was something which was very personal and would be very well thought through in terms of the user experience. But in the past, it was very much technology push, and it was really about putting things that you might use to control a great big machine, some large piece of equipment, onto a chair and expecting someone with limited abilities to use that to move it. So it was very engineering focused. So one of our biggest innovation journeys was to start with something really common sense that said, well, what actually is the end user experience? What are their lives like? And it sounds silly to say that because you would think that'd be an actual starting point. But for our industry, it hadn't really been. So we started at that point, started working through what that looked like. And through that process, we were able to change our approach to our own business as well as the customer experience, and also introduce new business aspects or new revenue flows, if you like. So one of the key things was, from a manufacturing perspective and design, was to say, how can we understand those customer needs and then represent them in a product which is highly customizable but deliverable all over the world? And where we really got to with that journey was to say, actually, our product from a hardware perspective is really just a vessel, and what really counts in there is the software. And then what makes that really valuable and that level of, and really brings the customization to life, is being connected. So if our products are connected products, then we're able to update them over the air, and we're able to provide each individual with a different experience dependent on their needs. So highly customizable at a software level. So that's taking a software focus as opposed to a hardware focus, based on a user experience and user interface understandings, and then making sure that was also that experience was also connected, so we could understand those experiences and understand how to improve them, and then gather data that actually help with the health outcomes. That was a fundamental leap forward for us as a business, but also for the industry. And that provision of the data then is, I suppose, where the other part of the crossover is into my current life, which is really into that space of machine learning and creating something valuable out of what started off for me or for our business as a piece of hardware, then became about software, then became about data, now is about intelligence. And insights in terms of user is the thing that links it all together. So that machine learning piece then, we started to move outside of our comfort zone, but by finding really strong partners, Jade was one of them, but also other strong global partners who could help us with bringing these types of products to market. So we chose people like Microsoft and people like Qualcomm to make us, who were very small and in some ways quite insignificant, but to give us a global stage or a global platform, made us look bigger than we actually were right from go. So really good partnerships and collaborations there, great in terms of feedback and communities and ecosystems as well. And out of that, we then started to be able to grow another whole revenue stream, another whole part for our company in terms of health informatics. And the machine learning piece of that then is informing that and helping us understand what are the insights out of all this data. And that's where the Jade piece comes in. Jade Software has a long history and is across a whole lot of, is particularly around ERP systems and core banking and financial. But one of the areas that's really interesting that we're doing some great work in now, again, customer insight driven, is around how we apply AI, not just artificial intelligence, but think of it in terms of assisted intelligence and machine learning to really dig deep into our customers' user experiences and bring to life new ways of them working and new ways of them discovering value or delivering value. So we've got some really interesting things that are starting to come to light there. I think there was recently an article on the student churn, so the student management system. Some great insights out of that in terms of the machine learning stories that we're telling, and some really interesting AI stories that are coming up with other customers, particularly across Australia, New Zealand, and into the UK.
Thank you very much indeed, Charlotte. That's a fascinating story. That's an amazing journey that you and your colleagues were on with powered wheelchair interface with people. And so that's now that sort of machine learning and that ability to radically change the relationship between product and user. That's a service that Jade is now offering more widely.
Yes,
Yeah.
so Jade, and also so the previous life, that's a service now that they're offering, that the control company is offering globally in lots of different ways, and Jade have helped to enable that to be done.
Yeah. Jim and Brent, as you hear about those sorts of technologies, how does your mind sort of take off with great flights of fancy about how they might change your businesses?
Well, I think there's huge opportunities for us, and we're only just really starting to explore some of that. So we've made a deliberate investment in automation, and particularly this technology around collaborative robots. We're just starting to work with machine learning, some big data around machine learning, and I've got a particular interest also in how we actually grab some of the data that's out there at the moment with our customers to actually start doing some predictive modelling on what our demand might look like. Because in a short lead time business, it's almost impossible to see that in the future. So there's tremendous opportunity for us. Yeah.
So in our business, where our product is on the factory floor and seeing into the electrical supply, the automation practices, plus actually performance of the motor, there's a lot of data there that could be of use. But at the moment, people are still working out exactly how that might be used. What we're doing in readiness is to actually make sure that we're IoT ready in terms of on the platform, exactly what the solution will be. We're closely working with our partners overseas, and really they're still grappling with it, even our very large partners. But our position is to be a fast follower and to be ready to deliver that information.
David, in terms of what you're seeing at an NZTE level, we're starting to see some quite good take-up across manufacturing in New Zealand of these sorts of technologies.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's starting with the awareness first of all, which is good, and events like this definitely help. Take-up's probably a little to come, because I think actually there's an urgency and a call to action that if you sit here in New Zealand, you don't necessarily notice. So when you travel globally, you realise how mainstream some of these technologies and approaches have become. That you realise that wow, we've got to run really fast just to keep up. And so it's great to see events like this, because that kind of awakens people. And as I say, I thought the previous presenter did a great job of that too. The reality is actually the rest of the world is moving very, very quickly. And we can sort of sit here and think we're sort of insulated or inured from all these global trends, but the reality is we actually have to understand and grasp them and move ahead quickly. The sort of technology that we were talking about here with virtual reality enabling a way to go to market and show people how what your products do or what your factory looks like is a fantastic example of where you can kind of take an early step. You're not necessarily changing your manufacturing techniques yet, but you can start to adopt some new technology in the way that you go to market, for example, and that's a really clever idea.
And Henry, have you got some applications here in New Zealand where virtual reality or augmented reality is very much part not just of, say, the design process, but part of, say, the manufacturing process as well, in terms of sort of guiding people through complex processes.
In the loosest sense of manufacturing possible, yes, as you could say, we manufacture software. But yes, we actually use our own tools in the design process. For instance, there's an action application that some of you might have seen crop up on your Facebook called SketchUp, which will show someone trailing a wand, and it's like a never-ending sparkler, basically. Wherever you move the wand, it leaves a line of some sort of paint or something. What we can do is sometimes we'll sit down with the customer and say, oh, what do you want to do? And they'll give us a rough description. And we'll say, all right, can you throw on this headset and draw it for us? Now, I can't read my own handwriting, for a start. But to be able to put someone in an environment where they can physically map out, oh yes, so I'd like the walls to be this high, we have a sign here, and there's like a box thing that goes here, and it looks a bit like this. For us to then be able to put that headset on and stand inside of what they visualized in a spatial capacity gives us a much greater understanding in terms of what they're trying to achieve, what it looks like, what the dimensions look like and feel like from a distance. Compared to your traditional paper mediums, trying to sketch it on a piece of paper, or even showing someone a 3D video, it's a whole different world in a true sense. And so for trying to communicate ideas of what someone wants to invent or create or modify in that sort of plane leaves so much more room for playing around and tinkering, because the time isn't all consumed just trying to communicate your idea to the other person instead.